everyone. Hope you all had a good day. I did. Today, we are going to cover life. There's trauma, there's a lot of good stuff, and sometimes we tend to focus more on the tougher things, and we all deal our own way. So let's get into some of that. First, be okay with right now. Be okay with right now. That's what we should do. Um, Life is a journey. We all walk our own path. We don't know where others have been and what life experiences that that they carry with them. Know that people tend to project what they carry inside. Keep in mind that oftentimes people with the brightest smiles live in the darkest places. 6, understanding someone's bad behavior doesn't mean you shouldn't address it. 7, healing takes interaction. And interaction sometimes can be, difficult. 8, love one another. Love yourself and love God for loving you. Love at the core is a commitment of goodness. It's a commitment of goodness, right? So let's go deep. Let's go deep. We all deal in our own way. Every one of us. Trauma affects survivors differently. Trauma manifests itself in many different forms. Often trauma is not limited to a single acute event, but rather a culmination of factors and experiences. So take into consideration the range of reactions of people who have experienced child abuse, spousal abuse, even human trafficking, been a hot topic in our news and so forth today. There's still another less overt form of trauma that is far more prevalent in our society. It's the trauma that comes from the persistent false accusation or representation of who you are. When people start making false claims about you, it really gets deep, it gets into your identity, and you could be living a really good life, and they'll pick away at your identity. The survivors of these traumatic events tend to see society from an altered lens. Offenders are often people that they know or even trusted. It's easy to understand that every interaction with any person or entity is done with suspicion. You're cautious, right? Especially if the entities put in place to protect them have failed, and sometimes complicit or weaponized against them. This is commonly known as lawfare, another common topic that we're hearing more and more these days, where people are using the system to hurt people they disagree with instead of having an open dialogue, which we need to get back into. Even if it's a heated dialogue, it's okay. The lawfare is a tactic that's used by predators when the use of the false accusations have failed and all the other stuff have failed, and they'll keep going until they break you down. So when prolonged accusatory actions are published or pushed into the community where the survivor lives, where he works, interacts on a daily basis. The quality of everyday life is diminished to some extent. If the perpetuation of misinformation continues despite all evidence to the contrary, the community, the community's perception of the target person starts to shift. When this happens, the survivor starts to feel rejected or dirty, even when she or he has lived a good life, a clean life, and has been an asset to the community. It's a breakdown when everything around you is coming at you, and that's based on a lie, and you know the truth, and nothing you can do or say can change their mind. It's just time. When real facts start coming out, real evidence starts coming out, is when things change. You know, it's sad. It's hard to watch. One of the things that I do on the side is help people that have been wrongfully accused, um, even went to jail, and they didn't do what they said that they did, and they had to plea bargain because they couldn't afford an attorney. And even though they didn't do anything, but they weren't going to win the battle because they couldn't afford a good defense. You know, so it's really heartbreaking because once this happens, they have to try to build themselves up in here first, then integrate back into their life that was destroyed by somebody who was lying about them. It's devastating. Forms of trauma can include, uh, complex trauma versus single incident trauma, and that's kind of what I was just discussing. Was that I'll just read this one. Complex trauma is usually prolonged trauma that occurs between people, often being in childhood or adolescence. Uh, since the events, uh, since the events often happen in secrecy, the victim may suffer in fear and silence. Single traumatic incidents usually have a clear beginning, while the complex trauma is ongoing or frequent, which does not allow time for the victim to recover. It often has more severe, persistent, and cumulative impacts, including negative coping mechanisms such as addiction, self harm, interpersonal relationship challenges, chronic feelings of hopelessness, and impaired daily functioning. It can also have a dramatic effect on physical and mental health and the well-being over the lifespan. That's a lot of stuff I was just sharing with you. Individual versus mass. Individual traumas are events that happen to one person, whereas a community, group, or mass trauma affects the group. Typically, communities with a common identity and history. I'm not going to go through all of these because there's just too many. Just understand that um, uh, not everybody lives lived a perfect life, and be sympathetic and be kind, um, be understanding. Survivors respond differently. Survivors of trauma often do not recognize how it has impacted them. Some might have temporary reactions, while others are more prolonged responses. Generally, initial or short term reactions are categorized as feelings of exhaustion, confusion, sadness, anxiety, agitation, numbness, disassociation, confusion, physical arousal, and or blunted affect. Even a more profound reclusive tendency from subconscious feelings of rejection and unworthiness, despite all the evidence to the contrary. Long-term responses, uh, I really just want to focus on this interpersonal one because it really covers a lot of it. What the other ones were. Survivors need to reintegrate themselves into the social relationships and build a support network. That's what I was telling you about when I was working with some of the people who are just getting out of jail or dealing with some of these things on a very profound level. At the same time, this can be difficult because their ability to trust others and their interpersonal relationship skills have been impacted by trauma. They may also fear not being understood or have feelings of betrayal, feel like they are burdening someone with their troubles. That's a big one, by the way. Furthermore, They may even want to protect others from their unpredictable reactions to unfamiliar situations. In other cases, trauma bonding may cause victims to express loyalty to their abuser and may not be willing to leave them or report them to the police. I've seen this. I've seen this. In addition, trauma survivors may experience memory disruption, memory distortion, triggers, flashbacks. That's a big one. It really is. Disassociation, depersonalization, and derealization. All these things. The effects are real. The duration of trauma and losses caused by the trauma, whether the trauma is expected or unexpected, whether the trauma has momentary or pervasive effects, how trauma is processed, affects how trauma is processed. This directly or indirectly influences what happens to the survivors. The trauma can also affect how survivors respond to potential future traumatic events, even if the threat of danger is only a perceived one. So just know that we all go through things, and people are reacting to life events based on how they have experienced their life, and they didn't live your life, right? They lived a different life, so they're going to respond differently. So be understanding when people are dealing with things. So with that, I'm going to conclude. You have a blessed day. God bless, and goodbye. Well, before we continue on, let's just cover what we're doing here, and that is a driven community show. And it's a community is the individuals that come together for the greater good, so we have each other's back if things go south, right? Um, when your neighbor's having a tough time, just be there for them, and just be there for one another. Um, we've kind of gotten away from that over the years, and I think that now probably more than ever, it's really important. Things are always heating up globally, and a lot of tensions and so forth, and it all trickles down to the everyday person. Which we've seen this happen before back in 2008 through like 2012. It was a pretty tough times for a lot of people. So we just need to come together when it matters, right? So, Driven Community Show is promoting that, right? I'll just do it like this. So, invest in yourself and your neighbors to build a fulfilling and happier life. Reach out if you have anything that you'd like to talk about. You can reach me. Reach me at driventransformations.live or Driven Transformations on Facebook. Yeah. So you have right now to do the right thing. We're only given right now. It's the only moment that you can do anything with. Moments in the future aren't here yet. Ones from 2 seconds goes over. You have right now to do the right thing. And you always have to keep working towards doing what's beneficial at the end of the day, right? If your neighbors are in need, have their back, lift them up, because every moment is a gift. Every moment is. So individuals unite for the common goods, common goals, come together. There's strength in numbers. You overcome the oppressive influences that we deal with. Driven communities, they stand together. Driven community, we are Uh, we're the neighbors. Um, we're in this life together. Bible verse says, "Do not seek revenge or bear grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself." You just commit goodness. Even if you have a grudge with someone, find the better outcome. You might have to, you know, get aggressive or whatever. Sometimes that happens, but don't do it from a bad heart. Always try to come back to a better place. Um, and again, love is the core of a commitment of goodness, and hate, of course, is the commitment of the opposite. To be committed to the greater good. The greater good includes yourself. Take care of yourself and those around you. If you're blessing the community, you get to live in a blessed community. The benefits of living for a greater good is, people reciprocate. When you find yourself in need, it's more likely that someone will be there for you if you're in need too, right? Um, People do, tend to pay it forward. And the truth is, they kind of always do. If it's something negative, they carry that with them too. So put positive stuff out there. So people do tend to pay it forward. When people feel blessed, they tend to bless others. And like I said, the opposite is also true. There's power in numbers. The more people feel, the more people feel respected and appreciated, the more they connect with each other. Um, Giving is its own reward. You don't need to do good things and expect to have good things come back. Just put it out there and it will come back. Always does. Just not in the way you think and sometimes you even notice. When we give without expectation of reciprocation, um, the knowledge that the world is now a better place, for someone else is rewarding. It really is. When outside influences come against you and your community, have each other's back. It's important because things don't always go the way we want them to, right? They don't. Okay, we're back. We're going to pivot to um, filtering out the irrelevant garbage. In doing this, um, the things in the world don't have negative effect on us. It doesn't create trauma in our lives. So by filtering it out and just really not letting it in. So let's cover some of that. Um, is there joy taking out garbage? Filtering out the irrelevant garbage in your life. So filtering out the irrelevant garbage. Um, this comes from an article, and I condensed it from Dr. Daniel Marston. We actually take in and process a whole lot more information than we need. Much of that information is unnecessary. Taking in information that's irrelevant to what we need uh, for understanding our environment leads us to make bad decisions. We assume that what we take in must be important, but it's not true. Much of what we take in is irrelevant to any decision that we need to make. One very good example of irrelevant information that we take in is negative comments from other people. People say a lot of negative things to us, and much of it is not really based on their their understanding of anything that's relevant. They don't even understand you, right? Someone saying you're an idiot is actually something that you have no reason to expect they actually understand. They are rarely, there rarely would be a reason to expect that someone would know enough about you to actually make an accurate judgment whether you're an idiot or not. So we can't, we got to deflect what what people throw our way. These things have really no relevance in our life. Just because someone has an opinion about us doesn't mean that's accurate. You know yourself. You don't need someone to validate you. Um, a lot of times people do these things because I would say it's because of habit. It starts off as something else, and you can read a lot about that. When I went to school, they covered all these things, but at the end of the day, um, all that gets pushed aside, and it's just becomes habitual to them, the way they talk, the way they communicate, and uh, many times don't even realize that's having a negative effect. So give them some grace and don't don't take it as fact. Don't let it bother you. Okay. The reason to ignore their statement is not because that it's negative. It is something to ignore because it is likely irrelevant. Just like I was saying, their statement is just some words that really have no connection to the person actually knowing anything about you or your abilities. In the It is a statement that has no usefulness or understanding of anything that's important about your world. It means nothing. One of the reasons why negative input from other people becomes so much of a distraction is that the negative things people say are only words. There's rarely any way that you can gauge how much weight you should give those words. We should never give weight to non-constructive input from others. Let me say that again. We should never give weight to non-constructive input from others. Someone calling you stupid is not necessarily someone who would know whether you are stupid today or not. But we often take it in because people are saying it simply because they say it to us. So I was saying it was habitual, right? Um, so they're just operating uh, out of habit. They have a pattern and push back on it, you know. Just but not out of a bad heart. But sometimes they don't realize what they're doing is um, counterproductive. So unnecessary information tends to have a considerable impact on what happens to us, on the judgments we have about ourselves and our abilities. Rather than focus only on necessary information that gives us real understanding of what's going on, we tend to give weight to a lot of information coming at us, and we shouldn't. This includes negative statements and negative reactions from other people that may not actually be material. We shouldn't be giving weight to negative uh, information from people about us. Um, always just focus on the positive. Always focus on the positive. No matter what in life, you're going to have uh, what you would call successes and what you'd call failures. The truth is, it's all part of the same process. It's all part of the same process. Because something didn't go your way doesn't mean you're not going to make it happen. It's just part of the process. If it didn't work, keep going, and eventually you'll get it. Find the problem, find the solution, right? The problem presents itself, then you seek for the solution. Another problem will present itself, find the solution. If people are throwing negative things at you, You don't focus on the solution as much as the problem. So focus on solutions, even if someone's throwing stuff at you. They want to distract you uh, from being solution um, proactive, right? Being proactive for a solution. Um, so helping people who feel negatively about themselves often involves helping them filter out negative statements. It's not that you look to convince them that the negative things other people say are wrong, but rather that what they say probably is irrelevant. Very often, people who are most depressed, anxious, have a strong need to feel like everything that they hear as some particular relevance uh, to themselves. But the reality is, most of the information that we take in isn't relevant. It's not. Very often, the best way to handle negative thinking is to consider it as just words that don't require attention. When someone says something to you that suggests a negative impression of you, uh, it's useful to keep in mind that person doesn't know you, not in any kind of way to make an evaluation of you. Considering that what they say are just words should just be discarded as irrelevant. Just focus on the good stuff, our our pluses, and capitalize on them. Yeah, I always focus on the positive. Know that you're good in here, right? Know that other people are good in here too. They just got a bunch of junk that's thrown on them or whatever. God bless. See you on the next one.